Hi, I'm Steve McCord, Cattaraugus County Director of Veteran Services, and this is Our Veterans, Their Stories, preserving our heroes' stories, one story at a time.
I actually joined the Navy because my draft number was number 69. So I was already in college, getting ready to graduate from Erie Community College in civil engineering, and we were going to go. And I didn't want to be a grunt. It probably sounds familiar, but anyways, so I was in a lab with the professor was actually an E9 in the Seabees. And he knew that there was a program called the Instant Petty Officer Program, and that we would all qualify. And so he took a shine to about 3 or 4 of us, and because our numbers were so low, and talked to us about it. And I decided to join up on his auspices. He was a great guy, and he told us about what it would be like in the Seabees, and no big deal, and do your construction. And away we went. Seabee is a construction battalion, and basically it's all construction. We ended up building everything from toilets to bridges. I mean, you just built everything. And of course it's set up like combat engineers, where you would go in you're assigned to a particular unit and or area, and you'd have jobs for whatever your deployment was in that regard. So it was basically construction. And I got the opportunity to go in as E4. And so my rate was builder, and away we went, right? So, so all this based on the premise that I didn't want to be a grunt. So we get to Gulfport, Mississippi in August, and it's hotter than the Dickens, and it's one of the few there's like 4 Seabee bases in the country. And we train, we get our greens, we get our Marine greens, we train, and we get ready for Vietnam. And so we're sitting there writing our papers about, you know, we're in now and we're getting ready to be part of the Navy Seabee program and all that. And as I'm writing my stuff down, he says, and on your second tour, and I look up and I'm thinking, second tour of Vietnam? And I had no idea that you had made 2 tours when you're in the Seabees like that. So I says, okay, so away we went, and I was with it was actually a reserve Seabee battalion out of the New England states that was activated for the purpose of Vietnam. And the average age in that battalion was 39, and I was 20 at the time. So there was a lot of old timers there. And that was, they got there in October, and I got there in just end of November, first part of September. In fact, I got my picture the day I left there. For meeting up with those guys. And that was in I Corps in south of Da Nang, near Marble Mountain area. And the projects there included, first project I actually got involved in was actually at the base. It was Camp Adner at the base. Would you know, ever hear that one? Most of the work that I was involved with MCB 12 was in the Da Nang area, and we worked on things like freezer storage. That was a whole nother ballgame. I got a picture of that from there too. The freezer storage. Now this is a situation where we worked 7 days a week from dawn to dusk to create this freezer storage facility for the I Corps area, where the boats would deliver supplies for all the troops, and we had to freeze a lot of this stuff because it was food items and different things like that. So if you can picture something that was freezers side by side for about 115 feet long, and there was probably 30 rows of these things. And my job was to build roofs over the tops of these freezer storage units. And so I spent a lot of time doing that, concrete and carpentry work. And for that deployment, I spent probably 3 full months doing that. And to jump ahead a little bit, we go home from that deployment. I came back with another battalion the next year, and it's all gone. When we left, after we left, the NVA came in and they rocketed and destroyed every bit of it. There was nothing left when we got back. So we had acres and acres of this thing that we were building at the time, and there's nothing left. We came back, and MCB-12 was decommissioned. I was assigned to MCB-121, which was also based out of Gulfport, Mississippi. And it was a full-fledged World War II type battalion, you know. And we started training again for Vietnam. And in August of that year, we came back in like June and July. August of that year, Hurricane Camille hit. You probably heard, everybody probably heard of Hurricane Camille. And that's a story in itself, because we were supposed to head out back to Vietnam in end of September, and we never got back out going until end of October, because we were on a cleanup for Hurricane Camille. And that I could talk for hours on that, but that was the closest I ever came to getting killed during that hurricane, because I was right on the Gulf Coast in an apartment. And I actually have pictures of that, what we were left in. I didn't bring it with me, but I have a picture back at my house. And but that was an incredible situation in itself, the way that all shook out. And after that was settled down, we were doing everything from forest fires, you know, dealing with forest fires that happened after the hurricane, and all the cleanup that was involved with the streets. And I was assigned to Pass Christian down in that neck of the woods, and there was some tough going there, and a lot of sites. The crazy thing about that area, of course, down in Louisiana, you know, everybody's buried above ground, and so when the water came through and the hurricane was in its full thrust, I think it was a 20 foot surge of water, which unfortunately got into the crypts and everything, and exhumed people right out of their crypts. And I'll never forget the time I was working nights. I had a crew at night in Pass Christian, and the idea was to clear the road, and we had chippers and all this other stuff, and these chainsaws that had like a chain to it that we could get into the wood and the brush really easily. And I happened to be, because I was in charge of the crew, I was back, and I actually had a girl I was going to try to date, you know. So I was talking to her father a little bit, and next thing I know, I get yelled, "Helmich, get over here!" And we go over there, and I'll never forget it. This lady, this older lady, about 70 or something, had died, and she was in a blue chiffon gown, and she was up in the tree, about 15 feet up in the tree. She had floated in the tree, and the guys were just about ready to cut this tree all apart, and came across this lady. It was just like, are you kidding me? So that's the kind of things we were involved in during that hurricane, and you get to know different people all the time. And some of the people I did meet and became very good friends with. In fact, Brent is on one of those pictures there too. And he's got a story in itself. It just goes on and on and on. But anyways, you know, you meet some very brave people, some people that you would go through a wall for. You know, that's the beginning of a relationship and a life experience that's very important, you know, people. We go back over to Vietnam, And we happened to go back to the same place, Camp Adner, south of Marble Mountain, same exact spot, but set up differently because now the Recon Marines are also in that particular thing. And so at that point I realized that the Seabees that I thought I was going to be in wasn't exactly the Seabees I was going to be ending in, because we ended up being detached with Special Forces a lot. And that's where the real story begins a lot, with activities and things that you go through. But anyways, so we're at Camp Adner, and my first project there almost got killed. The Highway 1 is the main route that runs north and south to the DMZ and up into Hanoi. And so down in our neck of the woods, of course, it was heavily bombarded and heavily mined and heavily everything, and it was just a mess. And we had the object was to the battalion before us that we took over for started the rebuild of Highway 1. And the first thing they did was they installed culverts through the road, and our job was to finish off the work. So these culverts are about 3 to 4 feet in diameter, and the idea was to create wing walls on the culverts, and then do all the subgrade work so that they could continue on with the road work later. So I had a crew ready to go, and I had the guys getting all the different things that we needed for the next week or so, because we had to go out every single day, and we had to travel in a convoy about 20 miles every single day. And so I went out the first day with a guy on a tractor backhoe, and I knew where these culverts were, but my job was to go out with him and start some of the mitigating excavation to set up the walls. So I'm on the back on the fender, literally on the fender of this tractor with this guy, and I had the map, and I said, oh, I know where it is. It's up here. And sure enough, we could see some of the work being done. So I said, I told him where I wanted to start this wing wall. So he swung around, got the excavator ready to go, and I went over there and I'm poking around and all this and that, and I said, yeah, this is a spot because I want to do this and I want to do that. So I got back up on the fender, and I'm watching him, and as he goes out there and he takes his first swipe at that spot, there's a booby trap. He came that close to setting off a hand grenade that was set up on the stake that was put in there by MCB4 that we were going to work off of. And I mean, it was within inches of pulling the wire on that. We knew that there was NVA in the area, but we didn't know we didn't know a lot of details when they told us that the Marines told us about the NVA and the VC and all this other stuff. So just be careful, and all this business. So anyways, one of the key elements of being in country is the kids, the Vietnamese kids, right? Mm-hmm. And if the kids were around, things are good. If the kids aren't around, you better have your act together. So this one day the kids weren't around, except for one little guy. And they'd always come up, and we'd always want to give them candy and all this other stuff. And so we were talking amongst ourselves, and we said, well, something's up, but we're not sure what. So the one guy was really good at getting the kids all excited about different things and that, and giving them candy or whatever he wanted to do. Finally, he comes back to where we were working. He says, there's a cache of weapons out there. He says, they're out there we were near a rice paddy, and he says, there's a cache of weapons out there. That's what I found out. So I get on the radio to the Marines, and they come over, and they went out there with the mine detector thing, and they found, you should see the weapons they found. Holy hell. Then after that, we traversed farther from the compound, and instead of being 10 miles, and then it'd be 20 miles, and we always tried to get back to the base before dark. So we ended up building a war wagon. We ended up getting a deuce and a half, and we built ourselves a war wagon with M60s on the top and all this other business, so we could travel farther and come back. Well, the guys who built it, they built it out of like 1/4-inch metal, protecting the fuel tanks and all this other stuff, so that we could travel, and you know, we never really got in a real bind, because once the Marines went through there with the minesweepers, we were pretty good shape, you know. And on the way back, it was, you know, they very rarely mined anything during the day. It was always at night, so we could really travel. So now we're out in a place called Delevan, and Delevan is almost to, well, it's south of Marble Mountain, about 20 miles or 10 miles, somewhere in there, but it's back in the bush. And that's where we were attached with the Korean Marines at that time. So what we were doing back there was we were trying to fix up their compound, and they had gun emplacements there and stuff like that. And so we like I say, every day we try to get back. So we started off. There's five in my fire team at the time, and my crew at the time, and it's getting to be about 4 or 5 o'clock, and we wanted to head out. So I'm in the back of the thing, on the back of the thing. There's 3 other guys with me, and 2 guys are in front, and we start out, and Dale, who was the driver at the time, he yells out, he says, "Rick," he says, "I only got 4th gear," right? Now this is a 2.5-ton Eager Beaver, and he's only got 4th gear, right? So I says, "Oh my God," and we're just starting out, right? So I said, "Let's get her rolling." So we get her rolling, and he's up to about maybe, and you never, over in Vietnam, how often did you go over 30 miles an hour? Practically never, you know? Never. So we had to get up to about 20 or 30 miles an hour with this big machine, right? So we're heading north on Highway 1, coming back. We're within sight distance of Marble Mountain. We have to get on the other side of Marble Mountain, another mile or 2, and that's where our compound is. But Marble Mountain was known for NVA and VC and all this other business, right? So the last thing we wanted to do is get caught there at night. So sure enough, it's getting dark, and we're rolling around there, and I cranked the rounds in the 60 and all this other business and getting ready, and we don't know what's happening, because if we stop, we're done. We're not going to get this thing moving again, right? So Dale's going around and look up. Now, Highway 1 at the time was no more than 25 feet wide, and there's ditches on the side. And I look up, and here comes a caravan, or a convoy rather, of an ARVN convoy, with a officer car in the front, and then a couple of weapons carriers and their own deuce and a halfs and that, and they're coming at us. And I told Dale, I says, "Don't stop for anything." So what happened was he didn't, and we're waving for these guys to stay out of the way, and they of course don't know what the hell we're talking about. So when Dale went by, we only had about that much room between us and them, and the metal on the side of the tank caught the officer's weapons carrier, took that thing and spun it around and hit the other car, and we just keep going. I said, "No, not stop." And these guys are giving us the finger and the whole deal and yelling in Vietnamese and the whole, and so they're going to be out there all night.
When did you earn your combat action badge?
Both tours. The first tour was the Tet Offensive in 1968. You talk about scared. Holy cripe. It's something, I've never been through anything like that before, you know, and didn't even know really what the hell was going on with the Tet Offensive. But at Camp Adner, we looked over a small village, and then there was a river on the other side of that. And Da Nang was farther north, about another 4 or 5 miles. So we had a pretty good shot of where the Da Nang was, basically. And I was on the perimeter. When the Tet Offensive hit, I was on the perimeter, and the guy I was in the, you know, you always had 2 guys to a foxhole. And so get in there, and you know, you hear and you see all this stuff in the distance. You don't know exactly what's going on. And the guy I was in with, he was a drunk, big time drunk. So I'm in there all by myself, and finally this guy shows up, and he's standing on there. I remember looking up at him. He's drunk, and he says, "Come and get me, you sons of bitches." One of those things, you know? And I'm thinking, oh my God. So finally I grabbed his foot and I got him down in there, and the shelling started to come in pretty good. And all of a sudden I looked down the river area down there, and I saw this explosion, and it was a mushroom cloud. It was incredible. It was huge. It was a mushroom cloud. And I said to myself, oh my God, they got a nuclear bomb. And about 2 minutes later, the concussion come through. You know, and that was the beginning of the end then. And later on, I found out later on that it was a ammunition ship, and they blew up this ammunition ship. And I didn't know it at the time. One of my best friends was on that ship, Mike Telak. Then the second one was actual attack coming over the wire type stuff, and that was pretty tough. And you know, the crazy part about it is that you shoot, but you don't know that you're shooting at anything. You don't see anything. Everybody's shooting, but you don't see anything until the next day when they're dead on the wire. You know, with the Seabees, we brought everything with us: water, concrete, wood, everything. The only thing we didn't have a lot of times was gravel, and so we got that out of the streams. And so even though I was in charge, I still had to go down and spend my time getting the gravel out of the streams. The way we did it was with a pump, where we would suck water and gravel in, and the gravel would be discharged, and then the water would be discharged. So we'd get a pile, and then the guy would come down with a bucket, and he'd get a bucket, and we'd go up and we'd mix it with a thing called a 16S mixer. So I was down there on about 10 o'clock in the morning on a day in May 1970, and all I had on was shorts, jungle boots, and that's it, right? So I get down on this little raft, and I get the gravel, and I'm looking through the gravel, and I see these green stones, like jade, right? I'm figuring, hey, I'm in the Orient, it might be jade, right? So I start picking out all this jade. I had a nice little pile of jade, which I thought was jade. And all of a sudden, now the way this is set up is there's a airstrip that the Caribou used to come in on, and we were creating a facility for the Arvins for when they took over. This is 1970. They were going to take over this area from the Green Beret, and we were just putting together a building. So you had to go down the airstrip and down to the river where I was in order to get this stone, this rock. So I'm down there getting this rock, but I'm farting around with this jade. And when the water discharged to one side, I took the hose and I held it up like this, and the water would, make like an umbrella. And it was 110 degrees out, but once that water came over, you could feel the rush of air. So this is cool, I'm feeling good. I got the water and the whole thing, and I'm getting my jade. Next thing I know, I hear beep, 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 and I turn around, and I look, and our Jeep was coming down. He was he was flashing the lights and beeping the horn, and the M60 was spinning around, and I look, he's waving me off. So I get off of the ramp, off of the little thing that we had there. I get in the water, I walk up, and he says, "Get in." He didn't even stop. He says, "Get in, get in, get in." So I basically, when I got in the back of the thing like this, all of a sudden the tracer round started going over the top, like this, right? He says, "There's NVA all over this place." So it's the airstrip, the river, and then a mountain full of jungle. That's how it was. And all the shots were coming from that area. So we're he says, "Shoot." I says, "What am I shooting at?" And I start shooting, and he goes up the bank and it's shooting down in the sand and, stupid stuff, And I'm just shooting. And away we go. So go down this end of the airstrip. We made a left, went through, there was a little dog patch there. And into they were pulling the wire in and everything to close off the entrance to the Special Forces camp. And we were the last ones in there. And I'll never forget it, the Green Beret top sergeant, he was a redheaded guy, little round-bellied guy. He went up and down us like, he says, "You are putting everybody in jeopardy," and all this whole stuff. I said, holy crap. So what do you think he did that night? One of our jobs with Seabees was to protect the CP during attacks and stuff. So I brought my guys up that night because we didn't know what was exactly going to happen. And he says, "Helmich," he says, "you go out on the listening post." I says, "I'm going out on the listening post?" He said, where I was totally unprepared for it. I've never done anything like that before in my life. I was totally scared out of my wits. And your responsibility was to, if anything was coming through, if they attacked, was to set off the Claymore mines and try to get back. That was it, really. And if you lost your weapon, if you had your weapon, you lost your weapon, you were in even double jeopardy. But it was not a good thing not to have your weapon with you. But so anyways, the point of it was that nothing really happened that night. But the next morning, when I was hoping for relief and they came, I looked around, it was a Vietnamese guy. One of the Vietnamese Arvins or whatever they were with the Special Forces guys. And he comes over and he bows and he says, "That's mine." I walk up and I walk away. It was like the weirdest thing in the world to go through hell like that. And then all of a sudden it's all over, it's one of the things. So, but yeah, so, but that particular, people don't know a lot of the stories about what happened in those areas back there. And people should really understand what these really true professional fighters like the Green Beret and the way they operate and what they do and what they go through and the people that they, that they support. It's just absolutely an amazing group. I was really proud to be with them. So. All right, so I put this together as a kind of a summary of what I went through, so to speak. But I wanted to point out, this is the cabbage up here, and I show a presidential unit citation. We did not get a presidential unit citation. We got the Navy unit citation. We were told that we got the presidential citation. We didn't get it, so I never took it out of here. But the center is me as right out of boot camp, being home before I went to Vietnam. That's that. Up here in the corner, this is me, and we were building the roofs of the freezer storage units that I was telling you about. That's typically what it was like. Down here this was training. This was training at Gulfport. Some of my buddies that I was with. This over here is China Beach R&R Center, and Brent Downing is in there, and he's the guy I went through the Hurricane Camille with. One of the bravest guys ever. His story is unbelievable. We got over there in monsoon season, the first with MCB 121. We got over there in monsoon season, rained like cats and dogs, and for a whole week we had to report at 7 a.m. Down at a muster area, and there's these steel Conex boxes that are there, and we're in this thing, and it's raining, and it's raining, and it's raining, and so after about 3 or 4 days, Brent says, "I don't know, I don't care." He says, "I got to get out of here. This is driving me nuts." He says, "Brent, don't forget what happened to so and so when he volunteered for this. He's up in whatever, and he's all this nastiness, right?" He said, "I don't care. I'm going to do it." So sure enough. We were in muster. The E7 calls for volunteers. Brent put his hand up, stepped forward. This is where we're at. We're at China Beach R&R Center, and he ended up being there for the whole deployment, tweaking screens, fixing junk it was just unbelievable. So every once in a while, he'd fly out to these nasty places where we were with the mail bag or whatever, and then on a Sunday or something when we had a chance, we'd go down and we'd take care of, go to R&R, the R&R Center, and we'd go surfboarding or whatever we were doing. It was just amazing. And then up here, this is on patrol. We used to do a lot of patrol work with medcap patrols for the doctors and nurses and that who went through all the villages and all that stuff to help the people. And yeah, that's what that's all about. We flew out of Da Nang and we came back to the States, right? We had a chance to get out either at any of the Seabee bases in California or Biloxi and Gulfport or up in Davisville, Rhode Island. I wanted to get out in California because I wanted to go to Disneyland. So this is the beginning of what you're talking about here. So I was still a ranking NCO, so I had 7 guys with me at the time who wanted to do the same thing. So we get off and we go to Port Hueneme. We stand in muster like we always did. And we were approached by a E7. I don't know, something about E7s I just don't like. But anyways, he comes up to us and he says, you guys, he says, you're supposed to get out. I'm going to keep you here for a month picking cigarette butts and all this other stuff and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And here we all had 2 tours of Vietnam. We were ready to get out, all the early outs, ready to go. So when he was done, I looked down the line. I told these guys, I don't know about you, but I'm going to call home. Now, prior to me going in, I had a chance to go to the West Point, the military academy. And my dad knew Senator Dulski at the time, and he was going to be my sponsor, right? I didn't want anything to do with that. So I called home. I told my dad what this knucklehead was going to do, keep us there for a month. He says, okay. He says, okay. So I told everybody else to do the same thing, and I know I did it. And next morning, this fat son of a gun come down, and he was behind a full captain. And the captain walked up and down the line, and when he came to me, he turned around and he says, somebody knows somebody around here. He says, I got orders from Washington, D.C. last night that you gentlemen are to be out in 24 hours. Isn't that right, so-and-so? Yes, sir. That was the beginning. So off to Disney World we went. Off to Disneyland we went, and blah, blah, blah. And I had befriended a guy from the Green Beret. And we were going to, this was at the airport and in Los Angeles. And so we get on a plane, we were going to go all the way to Atlanta. And that was where the change out was. We get off the plane at Atlanta, and he and I are walking down through Atlanta thing there. And I heard baby killer, I heard the most ungodly things. I saw people spit on him. They didn't spit on me, they spit on him. And all this time now, I knew things were bad over here, but I didn't realize how stupid they were. My father was a Buffalo policeman in Buffalo, New York, and he was right in the middle of this protest business, and he never really told me too much about what was going on, except, Rick, people don't like the war and all this other business, but I had no idea at the time that it was this bad, and but that really blew me, knowing what these guys went through, what we went through. It wasn't fair. And that held in there for a long time.
And when you got back to this area, was it different?
It was in fact different, yeah. Of course, my profession at that time, I was like I say, I was going to be in construction or whatever, and I went back to University of Buffalo, and I was in the architecture. I went for architecture, and I could see it festering in the universities, but it wasn't. It was hard to understand. I just couldn't put it together, you know. So.
Do you use your GI Bill to go back?
I did. Yeah.
Good, good.
Yeah. In fact, I had enough money left over to build a race car with that. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what was the adjustment like back into civilian life?
For me, here's my theory. I came out in June of 1970. I knew I was going to go to school. Some of the guys I was in were going to do the same thing, because we're all that type. And I had met my wife, you know, and so we started a family, we started a business, we started work, we started all this stuff. We were so busy. It was just unbelievable. It wasn't that bad. I never really adjusted that bad. When it started to hit me was when I retired and the Gulf War was on. That's when it hit me. All of a sudden, I can't even watch war movies without, you know, getting flashbacks and stuff like that. It was I couldn't believe it. So when I went through all my PTSD stuff at VA and everything like that, my theory was that we were so busy, we repressed a lot of things that we went through, and all of a sudden, when you don't have a lot to do, and you're in another phase of your life, you know, that's when it hits a lot of guys. And so maybe I never put two and two together in time or something, but it took a long time. It really did. And then of course I was Agent Orange caught up with me too, and that was in 2000. I think I mentioned that the Seabees took everything with us. I mean, we took our water, we took everything, our food, wherever we went, we took it with us. So, all right, and it was hard to figure out that Agent Orange was so prevalent every place we went, and what it was, who knew? I mean, when we got into fire bases or something like that, I mean, it was clear. I mean, you don't know what the heck's going on, but then you figure out later that they used the thing called Agent Orange. It's a dioxin. I ended up with an engineering company called URS Consultants, and they were an environmental company, and we dealt with all kinds of hazardous stuff, and then that's when I realized what was going on, you know. But I had never any symptoms until the year 2000, and my urologist discovered my PSA was off, and that's when it all started with prostate cancer. And then it was, why are my buddies having problems with diabetes? Why are my buddies having problems with circulation? You know, so-and-so died because he had a heart problem. It's like, wait a minute, this guy could run a mile and like it was nothing, you know. So that's the whole thing there in a nutshell. So, yeah.